It's a hallmark of modern American presidential races. Campaign rally claims about what life would look like should your opponent win.
Kamala will destroy your inheritance, but much more importantly, she's going to destroy your country.
He who has vowed, if reelected, that he will be a dictator on day one.
Or television ads that seem like trailers for a horror film.
Flood of illegals, skyrocketing prices, global chaos, and Kamala wouldn't change a thing.
Giving Trump the unchecked power to seek vengeance, eliminating the Department of Education, and defunding K-12 schools.
Regardless whether the language is packed with lies or truthful, there is a reason why campaigns use this type of messaging. It's effective. But why? What makes it stick? Drew Weston is a professor emeritus at Emory University who runs Weston Strategies, a political messaging firm. He says there are 4 emotions that really matter in politics. 2 are positive, enthusiasm and hope. 2 are negative, anger and fear.
In many ways, it's our most powerful emotion because it's the one that when we and other animals and other primates were evolving over millions of years, the first thing that they needed to do when they were out foraging or they were taking care of their kids was to pay attention to cues that there might be a predator.
David Wilson is the dean of the Goldman School of Public Policy and professor at the University of California, Berkeley.
Fear is an effective tool in politics and political messaging if you start with the idea that politics is about who gets what, when, and how. And if you are afraid, you're either going to give something because you feared or you're going to fight.
But what about hope or joy, which the Harris-Walz campaign originally centered their messaging around?
As Tim Walz likes to point out, we are joyful warriors.
That tone has shifted as Election Day draws near.
It is clear Donald Trump is increasingly unstable and unhinged and will stop at nothing to claim unchecked power for himself.
Part of the shift comes as the campaigns seek to draw a clear distinction between candidates in the final sprint to Election Day. Both the Harris and Trump campaigns know fear and anger also draw a more pronounced reaction from voters, and thus increase the potential that they'll take action.
Fear typically wins out because of a natural human bias around negativity. We tend to spend more attention cognitively. Our brains and our focus is on those things that are negative. Those things that are positive, we kind of take for granted. We assume they ought to come if we do what we're supposed to do. Joy is something that people have to get to. Fear is something that is invoked almost instantly.
Since political messages that invoke fear or evoke anger are effective, that creates fertile ground for candidates to bend the truth to get a bigger reaction. Take, for example, Tim Walz saying Project 2025 calls for creating pregnancy registries, which PBS News' partners at PolitiFact have rated as false.
Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies.
And the use of the language in politics is often designed to give meaning to things, not to be factually accurate in every single kind of sense. In other words, there are kernels of truth that color everything we do in the human world. It may be the case that Walz's language is designed to talk about the implication of what the fact is.
As for Trump, starting from his presidential run in 2016, he has frequently used racially charged, fear-based messaging.
You can't understand the rise of Donald Trump without understanding the major demographic shifts that are happening in America right now.
That shift, the most recent census projects that less than 50% of the US population will be white by 2045. A reality that may be fueling some of that messaging.
Americans who were seeing the demographic changes in their neighborhoods, they were seeing that their neighborhoods were getting increasingly people who were black or brown. There were increasingly people who were coming in who didn't speak the language. And they started to get concerned.
This campaign season, we've heard Trump stoke fear around claims about how critical race theory and trans rights are reshaping American schools. He frequently warns his supporters to be wary of rising violent crime, despite the fact that crime is dropping nationwide. But some of Trump's most fear-based language focuses on immigrants and claims that they represent a, quote, invasion of America, a message that draws upon anxiety and racial resentment.
And look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. In Springfield, They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
And frequently, literally evoking scenes from horror movies.
So they're coming in, many are coming in from jails and prisons and mental institutions, insane asylums. That's like, a step above, right? A insane asylum. And whenever I go, Hannibal Lecter, you know what I'm talking about.
Trump has deployed this messaging strategy before against various groups to then position himself as the only leader who could stop it or protect people from these changes.
If you want a president who will stop at nothing to protect you and your family, I hope you're going to vote for a gentleman named Donald J. Trump.
He's the savior. So he is the sheriff that will restore justice for people. He is the one that will calm their fears. He is the one that will stand up to the system that others don't feel like they can stand up to. It's a threat to their way of life. And it's not just completely one demographic. It's not just white males. There's a human condition around when the status quo is violated in any way, people have a bit of uncertainty about what that means. And that creeps in threat.
Trump is not the first to do this, though. This type of messaging, preying on racial resentment or fear of losing cultural status, has been around as long as America has navigated race as a society.
That led in 1968 to Nixon's Southern strategy, which was to use dog whistle terms like able-bodied welfare loafers, and Ronald Reagan used Cadillac driving welfare queens.
Frequently when we hear fear or anger-based messages, which Weston and Wilson describe as action emotions, that action is not to fact-check or to investigate whether these claims are true.
People are motivated to invest in what they already believe. And most people believe that they're good people. They try to be accurate in their ideas. They make good decisions. They have good associates, and therefore people they support in politics or in their neighborhood are good. If someone that's close to us, violates that norm, we have two choices. We can see them as bad, and therefore our decisions as bad, or we can rationalize why they did it.
So fear-based messages designed to get a strong reaction, mixed with a partisan media environment that may not fact-check or may even have their own motives, and social media algorithms that reward content that gets a strong reaction, all work to create an environment for fear to spread.
We really have a perfect storm around fear-based messaging right now, which is really problematic. You've got some leaders who are bent on using it, but you also have these algorithms that identify the kind of information you're hearing and start shooting you in that direction and not in the other direction to balance it. And so what ends up happening is the most extreme voices get heard. And so that's really, really not helping.
For PBS News, I'm Tim McPhillips.